We're good. All right, my name is Josh Wynn. I'm from Buckeye Wellness. I want to thank you guys all for coming today. I know it's you guys are ready for the long weekend coming up here soon, so hang in there tight. Just a couple things before we get started. We have a couple upcoming events. September 13th is our Ohio State Farmers Market. Anyone come to the one last Friday? Yeah, it was a great event. So we have our second one, September 13th, at the Ackerman Complex. So feel free to come out. We'll have fresh fruits and vegetables for purchase, as well as the sandwiches and grilled corn. Second, we have our Move with the Mayor event, September 18th. We'll have Mayor Ginther, City Health Commissioner Dr. Roberts, and our Chief Wellness Officer, Bern Melnick, doing a lap around the Buckeyes Path to Wellness, starting at the Ohio Union. So looking to promote physical activity in the workplace here in Central Ohio. So we'd love to have as many OSU representatives as possible. Last but not least, as far as for today, we'll have about 10 to 15 minutes for questions at the end. Everyone should have received an evaluation, so if you guys can fill that out, that helps us out immensely. So I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, Jay Lindner. He's a graduate of The Ohio State University with a degree in finance. Since 1993, he has worked in retirement finance as the president of Retirement Strategies. He currently serves as the president of the Central Ohio Professionals Education Council, which is a nonprofit organization, as well as the president of the board of Future Possibilities, which is a kids coach initiative for at-risk fifth grade students. So please help me welcome Jay Lindner to our Lunch and Learn.
Thank you very much, Josh. Everybody hear me okay? Well, thank you so much for coming. We definitely have a lot to get in here in a short amount of time, and we definitely want to try to make sure we leave about 5 minutes or 10 minutes or so at the end. So we're going to try to keep the questions down, but if you really think there's something you want to do at that time, don't hesitate. We'll just try to keep it under control. Also, for the last 20 minutes, Jerry Snyder, one of the partners over at Retirement Strategies as well, will get into some of that discussion, so we will hop right into it here to keep on time. First and foremost, again, what we're going to focus on today is what we feel are 5 major aspects. They're critical things that we want people to think about when they leave here so that they can create a financial wellness for themselves to make sure that they're on top, they're educated, they're clear, and they have kind of an outlook as to what your finances can look like in the future, but also make sure you got a good control of it today. So really what those, and let me go back one step here. He mentioned some evaluation forms. I know that you got some for Buckeye Wellness. We have some as well. Feel free. One of the things we want to include was a questionnaire. This is a great piece for you to just test yourself a little bit. You don't have to turn them in or do anything, but the orange side is for general. So typically if you're under the age of 55, that's areas that we want you to stay on top of, make sure that you're looking at. The purple side is kind of preparation for retirement. So those that are kind of starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, we always joke around, we want to make sure that it's a positive thing and not an oncoming train. So we want to make sure that we're not surprised as we get closer. And then there's also an evaluation form. We can't get into a lot of specifics here, but if you have questions, concerns, needs, fill those out, let us know. Financial independence, we do free snapshots for people that want to take a look at it. And then also on the COPEC website, which is kind of who we're through, we do other education workshops that I know I've seen several people here that have seen those. Just look on the events page and you can check those out as well. But for today, creating a sound budget, financial independence projections, managing critical life events, understanding employer and government benefits, and estate planning. So I'm going to cover these first 3, and hopefully my goal is to be done right around 12:30. So a lot to cover here. So budgeting. Obviously, this is, in my opinion, the most critical piece. We actually do some workshops down at Children's Hospital for new nurses and things like that. And one of the things we make really clear, everybody is told, right, start saving in your retirement plan. And start getting clarity and start getting control of your budget and if you have control of your budget, what do you think the next goal should be immediately? Anybody? Save in for what purpose? Emergency fund. If you don't have an emergency fund, I truly want you to forget about everything else as far as extra savings. That is the most critical to keep you on the path of success. So first of all, budgeting, get educated. Anybody here heard of like the Dave Ramsey systems and things like that? That's what this is all about in this area, right? This is about getting control, clarity. And I'm telling you right now, in retirement, if you don't have clarity on your budget, most plans fail, and we'll talk about that a little bit because of budgeting and managing expenses. But anyway, get educated, secure an advocate. Somebody that you can have push you a little bit. Hey, how'd you do? Did you stay on budget? This is just like any wellness, right? So having an advocate is definitely a good thing. Clarify where you are. I always like the idea of a GPS. What's the first thing the GPS says? Can I find out where you are? Where are you? Where are you financially? And so it's real important to make sure that you look at the current status first. Confirm supply deficit, annual cash flow. Get a handle on those credit cards and any debts. Right? They say good debt and bad debt. All debt's bad, but in reality, some debt is an investment, house, college, maybe things like that. Other debt is an anchor, credit cards, things like that. So get a positive cash flow. So sometimes when we work with younger clients, we're just looking at trying to figure out, are we at a positive cash flow? Let me give you an example. We fool ourselves all the time, right? We make $5,000 a month or $3,000 a month or whatever the number is, and we spend, let's use $5,000, and we spend $5,500, but we always have money in our bank account. So the person might sit there and say, well, no, I only spend $5,000. But if you slowly put money on your credit card, you're spending $5,500. You're just choosing to use future dollars. And so it's really simple to make sure that we, regardless of where the money comes from, get a positive cash flow. Then you can start working. Quite honestly, these should be switched. You want a positive cash flow, then get a handle on your credit card and an emergency fund. Question. Should you pay off your credit cards first or should you do an emergency fund first? Always. I don't even care if your credit card is 20%. You need to have some money so that you don't put more money on a credit card. Now, I would like to see credit cards adjusted and lowered so that you can maybe get better deals and lower interest rate and set up a plan. But the emergency fund is real important. Confirm credit reports, pay down debts, retirement fund, and other financial goals are also very important. Budgeting tools. We actually spend a lot of time helping people. You can do the Dave Ramsey system if you don't want to do that system. I'm a big believer. I just have a simple spreadsheet. And I'm going to show you a system that I've used for probably 20 years, and that for some of our clients that really just want clarity, it's a great tool, and it just means that you get on twice a month, and it's really easy. But anybody seen the Huntington commercials out there where like the guy's like, yeah, I'd like lobster. It has a little drone. It goes, it's a spending tool, they call it. It tells you, no, you're out of your budget. So the credit cards, obviously, they market that a lot. There's also retirement plan tools, account aggregation, mint.com, things like that, where you can bring a lot of those things in together so you can see how you're spending. Financial independence, spending validation. If we work with a client, the financial independence tool says at the end of this year you're supposed to have $5,000, your bank account should have grown by $5,000, and then we talk in a year and the bank account's not higher by $5,000, that money went somewhere. Oh, that's right, we put $5,000 down on a boat. Well, good, we explained it, right? Should you have done it? That's a whole different story, but at least we figured out that your general expenses is pretty right on. And then this bucket approach is something that I really like. So what this is I hate budgeting. Personally, I hate budgeting. I don't like to be told what I can spend, but what I do like is I like to know what I'm spending my money on. So for me, let's use an example that somebody has income of $6,000. And forget about taxes for this example, just for right now. Well, if this person has $6,000 coming in each month, but they spend 65, well, what's our first goal? Get it down to 6,000, right? But let's use an example. Well, let's use the 6,000. So if you run out of money, what are you going to do? Credit cards. I mean, we talked about that earlier. So what I like to do is I like to put all of my income, I call it the 3 bucket, all of my income goes into one account. And quite honestly, this is real important, especially for retirees too, because they have to manage it much closer. All the income goes into one account. And let's call that a money market account. Doesn't matter. I do not pay anything out of that one account. I literally did this morning. I transferred X amount of dollars, in this example, $3,500 to my fixed account, and I transferred, in this example, $2,500 in my variable account. My fixed account, they're completely different accounts. And what happens when the well runs dry? You're done. This monthly budget is things that you pay every month. Your car payment, your insurance payments, your whatever it is that you have every month. Here I would use bill pay and automatic payments, ACH. Over here, and I'll track this, every single expense, because it's usually like 5 or 10 or 15, right? What do you think this side is? What's that? Fun. Going out to dinner, buying an extra pair of shorts, or whatever it is, buying gifts at Christmas, or whatever. I would argue that if you budget $1,000 a month for groceries, it's over here. But going out to dinner 3 times a week is over here, right? Because one is a controlled expense. One is, I hate it when people say, that daily latte. If you quit eating that or drinking that latte every day for the rest of your life in retirement, you'll have $7 trillion. My question is, are you going to make it through the day without that latte? Do you really enjoy that latte? How many people here this resonates with, right? I see you shaking your head. So the point is, it's not about not enjoying life and budgeting. Oh, I can't buy this latte because I'm not. No. Twice a month. Beginning of the month, move the money. Clear out your spreadsheet. 15 days through the month, you're just checking off these payments, right? If your taxes go up on your mortgage, your payment's going to go up. If the, whatever, you can change cars, I sold this, so you're going to adjust accordingly. And if this is too high, guess what? You don't buy a new car, so this will low down or what. But over here, 15 days through the month, if you've already spent $2,200 of your $2,500, you got a problem. So my point is, you should be at about $1,500 halfway through the month and $2,500 at the end of the month. You don't have to nickel and dime every little thing. For those that really need to get aggressive with it, you can. Now, if you're trying to now save money for an emergency fund, that number has to drop to $5,500, right? Because now if it's $5,500, you're leaving behind $500 every month in that account. And you see it build. See what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be clear. You have to be clear on where your money's going. And if you can't make it, start breaking it down. Maybe if you're at $6,500 and you got to get to $6,000 and the only thing that you can give up is the latte, guess what? You lose the latte then. Right? So does that make sense? Emergency fund, critical to focus on that. I'm just going to say 2 things. There's 3 kinds of emergency funds. One is, if you have a car accident, how you paying for the deductible, right? How you paying if you go to the emergency room? Where's that money coming from? So if you're just starting out, that's critical to have that money available at any time. It could be as low as $500 to $2,500. I like it to be higher. The second level of emergency fund is what? Lose your job, right? If you lose your job, how are you going to pay all those expenses we just looked at? So now you need an emergency fund that actually covers the $6,000 for how many months? And that is dependent on what kind of job you have. Do you have two spouses? Are you in a career that you can go get another job very easily? Or some, if you lost, I deal with this a lot where I have people that are in their late 50s, they lose their job, but for them to get the same income with another job, it ain't happening. Right? That's the reality of it. Because you got 10 years, you've been there 30 years, whatever happened, it's hard for you to get that same income. So it's real important to deal with that. And then the last is, once you have, you start building up equity in your home, don't hesitate designating your emergency fund as your equity line, right? So if you need $50,000 in emergency money, you can get cheap money from an equity line at any time. It's just instead of it in a bank account, it's sitting in the equity of the house. That's okay, as long as you have it accessible. And again, credit card availability isn't what I mean in that process. Last thing, please, we'll stay afterwards, but please, 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 if you have money sitting around in an emergency fund or anything that's sitting in a bank account or even a brokerage account, look at Roth IRAs. I am not talking about Roth 401ks, and you guys have 457s and 403bs. I'm talking specifically a Roth IRA that everybody, as long as you're under joint, it's like 180,000 or something like that, you can move money from a regular account into a Roth IRA. I think it's like 6,000 or 5,500. I always lose track. If you're over 50, it's an extra 1,000. But you can move that money over, and now it grows tax-free. Well, how does that meet the emergency fund? Well, because it has a special rule. It's called first in, first out. It means that if you put in $5,000 and it grows to $7,000, you can't touch the $2,000 until you're 59 and a half. But you can pull out the $5,000 anytime for any reason. I even prefer people to use that before college savings 529 because there's a rule that says you can also get it without a penalty if it's for college. And if you don't use it for college, now you can use it for retirement. Whereas a 529, you can't. And by the way, I'm a big fan of 529, but these are the magical, the Roth IRAs are the magical ones that everybody should put money in no matter what, if you can. Because you're not losing anything. Maybe you're losing access to that little bit of gain, but that's it. Make sense? Financial independence. Just like the GPS, you got to put in an idea of what you want, what your goals are, where you're going, what's the plan. And so it's real important. Do you know where you stand financially for retirement? This is the end game because we can always earn our way through today's issues, right? But in retirement, you better have saved your way. And you guys have great pensions here through the state and things like that and a lot of deferral options. And Jerry's going to talk a little bit about that. But where are you at, and do you visualize what you want retirement to look like? How many people here went on vacation this summer? How many people here spent at least 3 hours planning, calling, scheduling, whatever? How many people here took 2 minutes to visualize how they want their retirement to look like? And how to get there? Spend some Zen time. If we had more time, I like people to actually take a full minute, shut their eyes, and visualize what they're actually doing. Some people say, I'm traveling to China. I'm spending time with my grandkids. I'm on a boat. I'm fishing. Whatever it is that you're doing, that's what you want to visualize to make sure you're accomplishing that and you're not forced to not be able to do what you want in retirement. Too many people do that. Oh, I'm retired. Ooh, I'm retired. I can't do anything because I don't have enough money. Or they say, I'm going to do what I want because I have enough money, but then they run out of money, so by the time they're 75 years old or 80 years old, now they can't do anything because they actually have no money. So it's real important to do planning as much as you can. You guys have handouts, so I'm not going to read all these things to take a look, but really, what is it and some of the key benefits? Are you on track financially? This actually tells you how to invest your money. A lot of times people say, I invested because of this, that, or the other. No. The plan tells you a lot on how to invest and set up a portfolio and risk tolerances and things like that. Model pension plan payments. Should I take a single life, joint? Jerry will talk about those. Social Security. What about some of those scary things? What if I have I just donated to the Alzheimer's Foundation because one of our clients just got diagnosed. What if that happens? What if you have a stroke? I mean, there's all these things that we got to be concerned about. How does it impact your plan? Tax benefits. How many people here would buy a coat if it's 20% on sale? Right? Whatever it is. If you can get money out of your retirement plan at a lower tax rate, it's like getting it out on sale. So a proactive thought process on how you ultimately get money out is real important. And then test success rate, so there's a lot of ways to get into that. What are your goals? It is all goal-based. What is your goals? A lot of times we talk about needs, wants, wishes. I need to have enough money in retirement, or today if I'm working, to pay for my housing, clothing, right? All the basics, food. I want to be able to go out to eat once a week. Stay in the house that I like so much. Travel to see the grandkids. I wish I could have a condo on the beach in wherever. So a lot of those things, it really is about what do you dream, and the longer time you have, start planning for that dream. And if you fail, so what? I'd rather fail. What do they say? If you aim high, fail high, you still beat 80% of the people out there. Because they didn't even dream and plan and set goals and try to accomplish them. So even if you fail, boy, you're really farther ahead than a lot. For planning, these are a lot of the variables. I'm not going to get into it right now. I literally have 5 minutes and I'm going to do this. So here's what we're looking at. I'm probably going to push it a little bit, Jerry. This is a visual that we like everybody. Anybody see the commercials? It's a bank or an investment company where they're walking around with a number under their arm. Has anybody seen that? And they say, what is your number? Well, what they're meaning is if you have a pension or Social Security or the state pension, right? That's an underlying income. But they're saying, how much more money should you have saved in your 401k or 457 or whatever so that you can have a successful retirement? And that's what this side over here represents, your portfolio. So let's say you're 30 and you've got 20,000, and then you got 100,000, you got 500, whatever it is. At some point when you want to retire, how much money did you save to supplement your income to meet your income needs so that you run out of money after your projected death? And the joke there is, in Kopek, Mike Sheddinger, he does programs once in a while. I'd like you guys to make your last check to your funeral home and have it bounce. Let me rephrase that. I don't want you to do that. We don't want to call it that close. Because what if you lived another 6 months or 2 years? John McCain, right? How old's his mother? Everybody knows that. Did she plan on 106? So how are you fulfilling those later years is real important. So, but that's the visual. What's bad about this? We project that you're going to run out of money at age 80 or 75 or 85. We project. We don't know for sure. We don't have a crystal ball. But we can model so that we can be clear on, look, it's pretty obvious. You're probably going to run short. Would you rather learn that here or here? Here. Just like anything medical, right? High cholesterol. It's a sign here, not I just had a stroke, right? And by the way, would you rather learn this the day after you retire or the day before? How many people think you can go to your HR department and go 2 months after you retire and go, hey, by the way, I met with my advisor and we did a plan and I'm wrong. I actually need to work another 4 more years. Can I get my old job back at the same pay? They would escort you to the door. Not here, of course. How do we fix this? Do we save more? Do we work longer to push this back out? Right? Simple. And this is an example of, hey, we have enough money that it's projected that it'll keep growing or still do pretty well. And in that example, what? That's where you can start dreaming even bigger. I want to gift some money. We had somebody in the other day, I want to leave $1 million to my kids. Whatever it is. But that ain't happening on the other plans, but it's happening here. So those are things you want to look at. Big caution sign. Most retirement plans fail because they don't stick to their plan budget. Period. End of discussion. If we do a plan and it doesn't succeed, it's not because the market screwed them over. It's not because inflation was so out of whack. Usually it's because they didn't stay on a planned budget. And so we work really hard to make sure that we think of all the things. So being in the act of practicing that now, before you retire, for 30 years, 10 years, 2 years, I don't really care, so that you have an idea that when you retire, I can do this, or I have no idea really. Failure to stick, underestimating inflation, does have a big impact. Excessive one-time withdrawals. Oh, well, I wasn't thinking that I wanted a boat, but I want a boat. Or an RV is a big one, right? Or a down payment on a condo down in Florida, or whatever it is. I didn't plan on it. Family members. Oh my gosh, we've got a counseling group in our office. We send them referrals all the time. You're telling me I have to stop giving my niece money? Yes. No. Do what you want, but your plan isn't going to work. At some point, family, you are not the responsible party for somebody who's 45 years old. Right? Poor tax bracket management. If you have $1 million in an account, one person does tax bracket management and they net out $800, the other person got $650, just because they didn't manage it right. So making sure that you're looking at that is important. And failure to account for your health care and long-term care expenses. Managing critical life events. I mentioned long-term care is kind of one before, but while you're trying to save up assets as well, it's really, really important that we focus on this so that you're prepared. The emotional shock is enough, but the financial devastation can be horrible if you don't have an idea of how you're going to handle this or get support through it. Bankruptcy, right? At some point, if you're building debt, it's going to blow up on you. And how do you manage it? How do you successfully navigate those waters? Job loss for an extended period of time. We talked about that with the emergency fund. You could have a one-year emergency fund, but 2008, right? How many people couldn't get back to work within a one-year period of time? And if they're the breadwinner, it's a scary situation. Family member extended illness and medical costs. A lot of bankruptcies are because of medical costs. Premature death of a spouse. Divorce. We're going through a divorce of our clients right now, and the two divorce attorneys are asking me about, well, which way? I'm like, you're the attorney. I don't know what to tell you. But we're trying to balance this out so that we can make the most fair situation for them, but it's a tough thing. Caring for your aging parents. Anybody caring for your aging parents? If that's not a wake-up call, I don't know what else is. While you have time to plan. Retirement transition is critical. Don't let the transition dictate to you how your life's going to be. You understand what you have control over. Manage what you can, and a lot of people have a lot more control over decisions than they think. There's a reason why you get stacks of paper from banks, mortgage companies, pension companies, because they have to disclose everything, because nobody will research anything. And then they retire. Oh, I didn't know I could do it that way. Well, that's why they have all this disclosure in there, so they can say they did show you. Excessive medical long-term care again. And this is just a visual, and I'll finish up here, a visual of the way I want this to see. I'm cruising along, boom, I get an illness. Boom, I have a job loss. What happens here? And how do we plan for these situations so that this doesn't happen? Boom, oh my gosh, we lost a lot, and obviously the money won't last as long. In this situation, typically you're going to have to work longer. It isn't necessarily insurance, it's planning, it's understanding laws, it's understanding rules, it's understanding the benefits you have. There's lots of things that go into minimizing so it looks more like this. Hey, we had a big event happen to us, but we made it through. It hurt us some. It's going to hurt you some, without a doubt. But we were able to get out of it with still a fair future, and it didn't blow up our plan. Make sense? I am going to turn this over to Jerry real quick, and then we'll take some questions around 12:50, I think.
I wanted to touch on probably 4 or 5 subjects, each of which we'll spend about 3 or 4 minutes on, but each of which deserves probably about an hour workshop unto itself. But I'm not sure how Social Security affects any of you individually, but we get a lot of questions on it, so I wanted to spend a few minutes on that, and then we'll talk about your pensions and some alternative investment opportunities that you have in your employment. But yeah, the question is, do you qualify maybe from some other employment? Do you qualify for Social Security? If so, how much are you going to get? Is it going to be taxed? And there's a whole bunch of questions surrounding Social Security. You may know, and maybe this is review, you do need 40 credits to qualify for Social Security. They're now defining a credit as an amount of money you would earn or will earn under a Social Security employment. The figure changes a little bit every year. It's about $1,320 now. For every $1,320 you earn under a Social Security employment, you get 1 credit. You need 4 credits to get any benefit at all. You can only get 4 credits in any 1 year, by the way. So 13 times 20 times 4 is what? A little over 5,000. As soon as you earn 5,000 within 1 year under a Social Security employment, well, you've earned all the credits you can in that year. So typically you need the equivalent of about 10 years of Social Security kind of employment. So kind of a review, I think, for most of you. You can start a Social Security benefit if you elect one or qualify for one at age 62. Each of us now have our own FRA. That's become very important to remember, full retirement age. And that's based on when you were born. I think for most people in the room, probably it's 66 or 67 in age to qualify for what we call a full retirement benefit. But you can start at 62. The longer you defer, of course, the more you'll get. And then you can also defer it actually all the way up to 70. And from your full retirement to 70, you can get an 8% higher benefit. So those are things to kind of think about. The reason FRA is very important, though, it connects with when you want to start your benefit. And this chart reminds us that if you start a benefit from Social Security and continue to work, and this could apply to a spouse, then you could lose some of that Social Security benefit based on your earnings prior to full retirement. So, yeah, right now, and this figure changes, it's about a little over $17,000. So if you're still working, but you're collecting a benefit, for every $2 over the $17,000, they're going to take $1 away. Now, once you hit full retirement, you can earn as much as you want for this reduction. So, again, we're going to move fast. That middle column just says that they also recognize that if you're kind of retiring full year, you only have partial year of Social Security, but you have a partial year of earnings, the limits are more liberal in that very year that you retire. Is Social Security taxed? I'm afraid it is. You've probably heard about that. So on your 1040, on your tax return, they're going to look at the amount of money you get from Social Security and add that in with all your other earned and unearned income for your income tax, unfortunately. So it depends on how much you and or a spouse makes as to how much of that Social Security will be included for taxation. The figures are pretty low. If you're filing single, only $25,000 or more, then it gets into 50% of that Social Security will be taxed. So this chart will help you figure that out, but unfortunately, it's something that really can't be avoided too much. Anybody heard of the Windfall Elimination? Yeah, remember, I'm the messenger here. Don't take it out on me. But the Windfall Elimination would apply to you, the member. And by the way, let me take a quick survey. How many people are under the OPERS plan here? far majority, but how about state teachers? Any state teachers people? And how about people under ARP? So it's within that too. Okay, that helps. But the windfall elimination, again, we're talking about Social Security, applies to you as the member of a non-Social Security employment, i.e. OPERS, or being employed at Ohio State. But you also qualify for the Social Security benefit. Well, you get your statement, right, from Social Security, or you get it offline, and it's going to show you what your benefit is at 62. It's going to show you what your benefit is at full retirement. And it's going to show you what your benefit is if you would defer it to age 70. But guess what? For most of you, you won't get that benefit that's being shown on the statement because that's prior to the windfall elimination reduction. So, and that reduction depends on how much credits you've really built up. It's kind of a complicated formula. But if you have under 20 years of Social Security equivalent, then you're going to pay what they call the maximum with windfall elimination. Give you an example, last year that was $430 a month. So they never take more than a half of your benefit away, but they can take up to $430 a month. At least that's what the figure was last year. And I'm not going to get into the government offset too much because of time, but you may have a spouse that has a higher earning benefit under Social Security, and you may be able to access some of their benefit as a spouse. However, there we go again, because you've spent most of your time in a non-employment, non-Social Security employment, you could be subjected to the government offset. And that occurs when you start your pension from OPERS or whatever your non-Social Security employment is. Once you start that, they're going to look at what you would have otherwise been entitled to from your spouse's benefit, and they're going to offset that. It usually, frankly, greatly reduces it or maybe even eliminates it. And I'm sorry for having to give that message, but it's important to plan ahead and know. And if you happen to get both benefits, a little bit from your spouse, some from yours, when one spouse deceases, you don't keep both of those. So we want to, in Jay's plan, we want to plan for that. Okay, let's move quickly on to the pensions. We kind of look at two major types of pensions, the traditional and the member-directed. And most of you, again, are with OPERS, but those who are with AARP, you elected to go off and go into your own self-directed pension, if you will. But depending on when you were hired, many people that were hired, back then only had the option for a traditional. But if you were hired more recently, you could have part of both with OPERS or who is administering your pension. But they operate very, very different, and they're kind of opposite. And there's pros and cons of both, and I've listed a few here, and we'll touch on them very, very briefly. But traditional is really a promise to pay you a benefit for the rest of your life that you can't outlive. That's maybe on the positive side. On the other hand, you don't have control of how that money's invested. You've delegated that to the pension company. And generally, with a couple of exceptions, when you leave your employment, you can't take a lump sum, so you need to elect that lifetime benefit. And pros and cons, the lifetime benefit, but when you quit, or when you stop, and that's a nice word to say, decease, when you stop, then the payments stop as well. And of course, you can spread those to a spouse and share your benefit. The member-directed, or what we call a defined contribution, is the exact opposite. There is no promise to pay you for a lifetime. Your payment will depend on what you put in, what the employer put in, and how that grew. And but again, you have more control. You might be limited, but you have some control on how that money's invested. You have some choices there. And then when you do separate from service, in most cases, you can take that money with you and you can put it with another custodian. You might deal with an advisor. You might kind of totally self-direct that. And also the defined contribution has a legacy benefit, that if you don't use all your money and you decease and a spouse decease, if there's money left over, you might have an option to move that on. with certain defined contribution type plans. So there's pros and cons of both. In a perfect world, we kind of like to see maybe some people have some of each. You know, the defined contribution could also be a 401k that a spouse has, or maybe you had prior employment and have a 401k. That takes on the defined contribution attributes. Even an IRA kind of has those choices that you can control, but you don't have that lifetime promise of a benefit. Something also you folks have available to you that many don't, and that is supplemental plans to enhance your investing in retirements. And those take the form of the 403B, often called a tax-sheltered annuity, or the 457, which is deferred comp. You see, because you people working for a high estate are considered both working for a nonprofit, but also for a government entity. So you get the advantage of both, and you can actually participate in both concurrently if you wish. And boy, can you do a lot of supplemental investing. I really don't care if only you could put $25 a month in, if that's what's available. These are great plans to do that. But if you can do more, all the better. And so you can actually do up to $18,500 a year if you have the capacity to do that. You know, you're reducing your salary, you're getting a tax benefit because you're not reporting as much income on a year-by-year basis. And those monies are going in to these plans, and they're growing tax-free, and yes, eventually you need to take money out. But they're great supplements, and you can do a lot, and we really encourage it. Buyer beware, though. As you have limited choices. You know, the OSU has approved maybe 6 or 7 in each of these categories, companies. But believe me, and we've studied most of them, they really vary a lot in expenses and in performance of the funds. So do your homework on it. Don't get sold a plan. You know, do some homework, maybe even consult with an advisor to give you some direction on those. Okay, let's move on briefly to the pension distribution options. This applies to really the non-ARP people. This applies to those that have the traditional plan. So when we get down to the end of the line and you're ready to separate and you're ready to make some retirement decisions, here's some of your choices that you have. We can only spend a couple minutes on it, but they're highly impacting decisions because a lot of the decisions are irrevocable in nature, and you know what that means. Once you make it, you can't change it. So you got to do it right to begin with. That's why we like people going through that financial independence process. Let's test out some of these decisions before you actually have to make them. What's the impact? But of course, if you choose a single life as the member of these plans, if you pick a single life, you get paid the highest benefit because it's just based on your life and your longevity. And of course, it's based on your final average salary, and it's based on the age to which you are retiring, and and you know some of the decisions you make as well. So and then of course you can share that benefit with survivors. Typically it would be a spouse, but it doesn't have to be a spouse. And of course you're reducing your benefit, and you have other options as to how long you want to have benefits paid out. I mentioned with the one exception would be the partial lump sum, where you can take out a lump sum of your benefit. It's going to reduce your benefit because you're taking out lump sum from that monthly payment, anywhere from 9 to 36 months of your benefit. Can be done as far as a lump sum. I want to work through just a really, really quick example to give you a feel for these decisions and the impact. I happen to use a state teacher's retirement person, but the same thing applies to you as an OPRS member. And and by the way, we acknowledge there has been a lot of changes in the pensions. They're looking at now for more recent people retiring, 5 years average salary versus 3, and requiring maybe working a little longer and being a little higher age to get full unreduced benefits. So there's been a lot of changes, but I will say, in respect to our comparisons to private sector plans, you still have a very nice pension plan that you're involved with. But here, this client made a final average salary of $75,000. They worked 30 years, And so here's where their choices. If they collected single life, $4,125 a month for the rest of their life, when they deceased, the benefit would stop. If they chose to share that with a survivor or another joint person and elected a 50% option, you know, they're getting a reduction of about $300 a month in the member's benefit to provide, because the pension has to now support two people in the pension payouts. And so on and so forth, indicates the reduction that would require to pay a survivor a certain percent, up to 100%. So again, in that first example of 50%, if the member died first, then the survivor would get one half of that 38 or 1,900. So the 38 would be what the member reduces to. So very, very important decision, and needs to give a lot of thought to that. One real quick strategy that we might think about doing is, you know, we're hoping the member, of course, lives a very, very long life. They're giving up quite a bit of reduction to provide for a spouse. Of course, you want to provide for the spouse. So are there other alternatives? We might look at life insurance as an alternative, maybe a more cost-effective way, so that the member could be comfortable in picking the single life, and where maybe the insurance would come in on a cheaper way to fund and help out a survivor.
Hey, Jared, as far as time, to make sure we leave some,
Yeah.
hopefully 10 minutes, maybe 9 minutes for questions. Could you maybe just run down to the 2 slides farther on the estate planning?
I will do that. Just real quickly to say that we acknowledge how important it's like preaching to the choir. All the changes that have taken place in the healthcare, so that needs to be closely looked at. The PERS people now need, of course, 20 years to qualify for benefit. As state teachers are still 15 years. But so very part of the planning, and of course, you'll want to know how you integrate into Medicare as you separate from service, particularly when you turn age 65. So look ahead on that. Many choices available. And so, yeah, Jay wanted me to wrap up with the estate planning. And we think it's a good time when you're pulling things together, you're starting to look at your financial matters in general, or particularly starting to look at retirement. It's a good time also to revisit your estate plan as well. A lot of people, or some people, still don't even have a will. We want you to have a will. Intestates means that you're going to rely on the state of Ohio to administer and find out where your funds are going to flow to. So yes, we want you to have a will. More common problem we run into is people aren't updating those. They still have their a guardian pick for their child who is now 35 years old. So we run into those kind of things all the time. Also, in addition to wills, is other important documents. Obviously, you guys know about the health care powers. You know, one that we see missing a lot is the financial power of attorney in terms of naming somebody else to work in your behalf or to make decisions on your behalf if you can't, for financial type matters as well. So very, very important, and we highly encourage you to look into that. How you title your property is very important. Keeping beneficiary designations up to date. Also with your pension benefits, making sure that beneficiaries are properly named and updated as well. So with that, we're
going to open it up to some questions.
Yep.
If anyone has a question, just feel free to raise your hand. Start here.
Thank you for the great presentation. So you mentioned something with the Roth IRAs and education. Is that just a first in, first out, or is there a special provision with that for education funds?
A 529 plan, all your deposit and your earnings is all available tax-free for college. In an IRA, in a Roth IRA, specifically, your earnings can come out tax-free as well. First, to get to the earnings side of it, you don't have a penalty, but you would have taxable. because the IRAs have a withdrawal provision for college. So the point of that is if you over 10 years put $30,000 into a Roth and it grew to, $37,000, you can get to all 30 tax-free just like a 529. But let's say you get scholarships, maybe some other things happen and you don't use it for college, all of that money can still be used for your retirement. Whereas in a 529, you're kind of stuck. You can move it to a different beneficiary. So I'm a big believer in a third, a third, a third. A third you want to save for their college. A third pay it out of cash flow. And a third you want to go ahead and get loans. Why? Because you don't know. How many people respond better to the carrot or the stick, right? Sometimes putting a little bit of skin in the game with a loan is not a bad thing, and then you can help them pay it off. And all of those funds can be used, whether you're saving for it to pay or saving on the back end. But each of the plans are a little bit different. I'll say this, you can't go wrong with either one for college. But if you're not using it for college, they join the military, who knows? Now you're stuck a little bit. You got a little bit of excess money that you can't reach, or you got to pay a penalty on it. So just be aware of the rules of withdrawal. I'm going to give you this so you can talk.
Okay. You talked about the benefit of the supplemental retirement plans, like the 403B, and that you could talk to an advisor about that. Is there any place, maybe online, that you would suggest we look at first so that we bring information to an advisor?
You want to comment on that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of information just in general about 457s and 403Bs, if you want to just learn technically how. But before purchasing, I mean, you can get from the companies or a variety of companies, there are specifics on that in terms of the expenses and everything. So, yeah, there's...
And you're talking the 403B and 457. Yeah. Definitely go to the alternative retirement or supplemental retirement page on the website, and they have all the information. I will say this, that unless you get into the prospectus, how many people here love reading prospectuses? But you got to get into the information. You got to understand, as Jerry said, what are the expenses? Because some of them have excessive, more than you might need expenses. Some of those expenses includes advisor help. So it depends on which program you're in and what kind of help you're getting and what the investment options are. They're all good, but maybe one is more for you versus somebody else. So I would definitely start at that page on your benefits webpage.
You can visit OSU EAP. You just go to Google, type in OSU EAP, it'll pop up some financial information as well. I think we can take questions for one. Anyone has one more question? Right in the back.
And for those that are able to, we will stay afterwards. I know that we're pretty tight on time, but we'll stay afterwards for anybody else.
So if you work in two places, in OSU and another company, can you have retirement from both places for this year?
Could you speak in? I didn't.
Yes. So if you work in two places in 1 year, you work at OSU, and in the same year you work in another company which is not OSU related, can you earn retirement for this year? Because it will be Social Security retirement
up
and OSU retirement.
Are you talking that if you're in OSU for the state pension
Yes.
versus going somewhere else for the...
No, if in 1 year you work in two places.
Working in two
Oh,
places.
can you earn benefit credits for both? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
For Social
So-
Security?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we actually, that's actually a great question, because a lot of people, by the time you're 50 or 55 or 60, they're like, oh, I don't qualify for Social Security. Well, guess what? If you get paid a small amount for board work or working at your sister's flower shop, all you have to do is earn those credits to get to the 40 total, and you qualify to satisfy that. So there's a lot of people that actually work their full-time job, and they earn enough to get those credits built up at the same time.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah, you definitely can. Yep.
We have 2 minutes. That's a lot.
Yeah, we got 2
of
minutes.
time.
Anyone else? Any questions? Like he said, they're going to stay after. I want to thank you guys all for coming and
Thank
tuning
you so
into the
much for having
webinar.
us, everybody.
You guys all should have received a evaluation.
My son wants to stay.
1 second. It looks like this. If you guys can fill that out, we greatly appreciate it. Those on the webinar, you will be receiving an email here relatively soon with that evaluation. Next month will be on healthy aging and athletes, or how to prepare yourself for exercising. So as you get older. So thanks for coming, and see you next time.